Hey, good morning, everybody. So the first topic I'm going to talk about today is censorship. I'm just going off the cuff here. I don't have anything planned, so I'm just trying to make it a point that when I'm driving around to make these videos. But one thing that I keep forgetting the word, but a chill factor? Is that it? Is that the proper word I'm trying to think for? Like when you suppress enough people or, with censorship or anything, if you do enough damage to people's rights, okay? Like YouTube, for example, when you censor enough, it provides a chilling factor to where other people won't talk about things or won't express their opinions on stuff because or won't do as much content because they say, what's the point? That's happened to me a couple of years ago. As many of you know that have followed my channel, I was pretty aggressive at first about making content. What spurred me to start making content was actually a video in March of 2016 where Styx was talking about, if you don't know who that is, Styx Hexenhammer. Look him up. He's cool. He's awesome. I don't agree with him all the time, but he's a great ally in the fight for freedom and liberty. But Styx had a video that was talking about the original adpocalypse. This was the first thing that hit us as far as content creators. I hadn't really done any content to that point, and it inspired me to do so. My channel doesn't have ads on it. It should never have ads on it. You should never see a commercial on my channel, ever. I do this as a PSA to all my American freedom lovers. And I have no other alternative motives but to spread the word of freedom and news. But anyway, back to censorship. So a bunch of people were getting throttled at the time, and it was very milquetoast compared to what we've seen. But that initial wave of censorship spurred me to start making content, basically. I was like, okay, we need to overcome this. If there's more of us doing it, they can't censor us all, which turns out to be not true now. They've figured out a way, because after Trump won, they started locking down on everything. And as I make this video today, you can go to Trump's Twitter, and it's completely butchered with everything on there just about is hidden, contested. Every news article he's putting out, you can try to tweet it and it's like, are you sure don't you want to read this article to make sure it's true, yada yada yada, blah 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 blah. And so the president of the United States, the most powerful man in the world, he can't have his say on social media. I've seen currently groups that have nothing to do with politics. The first one I saw was the Drew and Mike fan club group that I'm in on Facebook, which is just an old WRIF out of Detroit radio station that was awesome. Well, the station fell by the wayside as far as music, like all the other ones, but the morning show for years and years and years was awesome. It was Drew and Mike, and they have a fan page, because it's not Drew and Mike anymore, it's Dave and Chuck the Freak, which they're awesome too. I'm a member of their group on there. I love both of them. But I saw a post on there saying that they had to, lock up the group basically, and because it was like an open join group, there wasn't any of the questions like you see on a lot of them that are like, what is this, make sure you're a fan, before they let you in type thing. Well, they didn't have that on Drew and Mike group, and they're like, announcement, now we have to have that, and every single post that's made by anyone has to be approved by administrators, or else it can't go up until at least January 6th. Okay, what happens January 6th? Well, January 6th is when the electors make their final decision on who the president is. I believe that's what it is. I posted about it on Facebook, but you can look up January 6th. It's like the final hoo-ha of making the presidency. Because Joe Biden is not the president-elect yet. He won't be until at least January 6th. So Facebook has censored like groups that have nothing to do with the election, which is nuts. But that's what tyrants do. They don't want the truth to come out. They want to suppress everything they can, and they always have, and they always will. The censorship is getting worse and worse and worse. We've seen nothing but the dirtiest and filthiest tactics of these big tech conglomerates that you'll ever see. YouTube banning videos based upon things they don't like. YouTube shadow banning, throttling views. We know this is going on. I've been saying it since 2016, early 2016. I had plenty of stuff shadow banned and all sorts of stuff on different accounts all the way across the board. And I would tell my friends about it that I was close to, and they didn't think it was a big deal at the time. You know, they were like, well, it's YouTube and it's owned by a corporation, and you don't have to put content up there, or Twitter or Facebook, whatever it had to be. Because I got banned off of Facebook because of my name change. That's a whole nother story I could get into. But I would tell my friends about these things, and they're like, well, you don't have to use these platforms. And that was a centrist opinion at the time. You know, we were at the time debating, you know, we didn't know the ins and outs of Section 230. I still don't, to a big opinion. I know what it is. But, you know, he's like, well, you don't have freedom of speech on there. It's a corporation versus the government. It's not the government doing that to you. If it was, then it would be a violation of the First Amendment. And I understand that. And legally, he's right. But that's a big failing on Trump's part. I must say, I voted for Trump in both elections, but there's certain things that he has not done that he should have done. And it's a little puzzling to me. One, the first thing was censorship and reform of Section 230. And it should be like this, because I get the part that Section 230 says that the publishers, or I don't know if it calls them publishers, if that's the big thing, can't be held accountable for things that are said on their website. You know, they can't be sued for somebody expressing an opinion that's deplorable, like actually deplorable. You know, things about, you know, conspiracy theories that they don't agree with, or like alt-right viewpoints or something like that. Somebody posts something like that, they, you know, Twitter and Facebook, they can't be sued for that. And that's good. That is great. That's the good part of Section 230, if that's how it is. The bad part is that they're allowed to censor whatever they want. They need to not be held accountable for the things that are tweeted on their platform, meaning complete and free, open, free speech, unless it is against the law, which would be death threats, etc. Terroristic threats. Those have to be, you know, edited at their discretion. But if they edit somebody based upon something that's not illegal to say, because freedom of speech obviously has its limits as far as hurting others. That goes into a whole other category. You can say whatever you want as long as you don't libel somebody, slander somebody. Those things should be checked by a human and removed if necessary, according to the law. But Section 230 should basically say that these big tech companies cannot enact censorship based upon their opinion. It has to be something that breaks the law. And that's my opinion on that. But going into it further, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all have gone into complete overdrive as far as censoring, and it's completely disgusting. It always has been. Like I said, I got banned from Facebook in 2016 for changing my name from my actual name, which I still left in there, and I just added deplorable to the front of it. and they blocked me in the thing that, not blocked me, but they shut my account down, and they even told me in the thing, someone has reported that this is not your real name. So I was actually narked out by one of my friends, you know, like, but they let me back on after I changed it, and then I changed it to irredeemable, blah, 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 my real name. And then they locked me out for good until I provided them with a ID card, with my, like a picture ID card, which is disgusting. And I didn't go back for 9 months, but I was making content through that period, and I wanted to join back up and see what was going on, because people were going crazy about the, you know, the left mostly was just going nuts. So I wanted to kind of join the fray to check up on them. So I did provide my ID, and now I have my actual name, which they made me remove my middle initial. I don't know why, because I used to have my full name with a middle initial in there. Now it doesn't have that, which is stupid, because I always go by that, like, professionally. But at any rate, the censorship is completely out of control. I don't know what to do with it. It's a complete failing of Trump and the Republicans for not doing something about it with the 4 years they had, especially the 2 years that they had Republican House and Republican Senate. And those 2 years were just about wasted. John McCain was awful and deserves complete bashing forever. For blocking the reform to Obamacare, and not that that was much of a great success anyways, but it was something. But the Republicans didn't help. All the rhinos stood against him, and then they got thrown out of office, a lot of them, and the Democrats took over, and then you got, you know, essentially much less done. And then with the coronavirus, like, essentially nothing done except a huge multi-trillion-dollar stimulus deal, which is awful. So while this election is not over, I'm not totally keen on making content that is all about you know, going nuts about every detail of the election, because it's not over. I'll say that Trump still has a chance to get in there. It's looking bleak because the Democrats have cheated him. There's no doubt about that. There's voter fraud all over the place. But I don't want to cry about spilled milk, because he could have done something about this. We knew he was getting cheated in 2016. We were afraid of election fraud in 2016. And what has he done about it since then? That should have been his first priority. You know, I was saying that in 2016. I don't know if I was making videos that said that. I can't remember what I've said or not in these videos. But the fact is that he could have done more to stop election fraud right from the get-go. And that affected the 2018 election, and it definitely affected the 2020 election. And what achievement has Trump had that helped make our elections more secure? And I don't know, this is not me saying that I know exactly what he should have done, because I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer in this arena. Hang on, I hit my vape though. So I don't know specifically what he could have done, because the states are the ones that are in charge of the elections, but something could have been done. I'm not saying that he should have done this or done that, but he should have done something. Trump should have done something about the election fraud, and the Republicans too. It's not just Trump. It's the Republican House and the Republican Senate that he had a majority in both at the time in 2016. And that should have been his first priority. And that goes for all Americans, not just the right. Because if the right ever, because the left is awful, and the left is going to get so much more awful that it's a black hole of awfulness, that it's bound to swing back to the right overwhelmingly. And when it does, if they use the same powers that the left is using and they abuse it worse than the left will cry foul for sure, and there'll be no recourse. So Trump should have done what was best for all Americans and secured the election system. And like I said, I don't know how he could have done that, because if you federally take over the elections, that's awful. We don't want that either. The states need to be in charge of it, but there needs to be stricter regulations, stricter laws. I don't know if that comes from the federal or if it comes from states, but he did have a bully pulpit, and he could have bashed these states that have the bad election laws the whole time to get his base riled up locally to change that locally. Had a platform, on his web page, for example, of here's what we need to do locally. So Trump was a great president, okay? It was Trump versus the world. But there's two major things that he could have done. Short up the elections and reform Section 230. And that should have been done in the first year of office, not let alone now where we're having to fight through all this. So that's two major flaws that I've never agreed with him. And the wars. He's starting to dial down the wars now, but again, in my opinion, and I'm not the commander-in-chief, and I don't have his intel, and it seems like he did a good job fighting ISIS, so it was, that part was real good, but the war should have ended at least 2 years ago. We should have went in there and knocked the hell out of ISIS immediately and gotten out of there. We've been at war for 20 years with Afghanistan, almost 20 years, which is ridiculous beyond any. It's probably like one of the longest war campaigns in the history of the world. I mean, it's just a 20-year battle in Afghanistan, and that should have ended. So there's three major strikes. Now, none of those things I mentioned, none of those three major strikes were enough to not vote for him this time. And I saw many Bernie-supporting leftists turn their cheek against the left because they saw how rigged it was against Bernie. They saw how disgusting they were treated during the Bernie-Hillary campaign, and they tilted towards Trump. So if Trump won in 2016, plus many family members that were on the left that changed tune, people that I watch YouTube videos on the left changed tune, everybody congealed around Trump. There's no possible way that he fairly lost the 2020 election. Am I going to cry about it though? No, I'm gonna take it on the chin because Trump could have done more, and it's not over yet. And if Biden becomes the president through legal means of recounts and court decisions, etc., if he becomes the president, you will not hear me say that Biden is not my president. All right. The leftists, their behavior, in my opinion, has been disgusting for 5 straight years. More than that, but it's gotten really bad the last 5 years. So, in closing here, because I got to run, I will not say the Biden is not my president, all right? And I will not go out and loot in the streets and burn things. We as people of sanity, I'm not just talking the right versus the left, people with a sane grasp on life that are hardworking individuals that go out and produce and build and create the things that we all love in this country, we will not be out destroying things. It's not in our nature. And we shouldn't go out and say, Biden is not my president, if, in fact, the recounts and the recourse that we have is correctly redone. If Biden wins fairly, Biden is my president. As much as it hurts me to say that, and I dislike him, and I dislike his policies, and I cannot even fathom how a guy with dementia and a senile old man with dementia, maybe early onset Alzheimer's, got the most votes in American history. I don't see that as legit, but we will see. And we will trust the system, even though I believe the system is very unfair. We must learn from this and move forward. We must learn from the mistakes that brought us to this point and move forward. And we must elect somebody very strong in 2024 if that's the case. Whether it be Trump runs again, maybe Trump runs again and gets 8 years next time. And then we have 12 years of Trump. You know, God works in mysterious ways, and thy will be done, just like the Lord's Prayer says. And there's no point in getting spun out of control, depressed, angry, and sad. What we need to do is double down. We need to make more content. If they censor us, so be it. we will go and we will use a different platform. We will never stop speaking out because we are in the right. The Texas Rangers say a man on the right can never lose against a man on the oh, I'm trying to think, I'm butchering the quote right now, but it basically says that a man fighting the good fight cannot lose. The guy fighting the bad fight will lose because the man in the right will just keep coming. And we have to just keep fighting back. Not physically, but technologically, spiritually. Just double our efforts. If you're mad that Trump lost, well, stop crying and pouting about it and get into action. Start making YouTube videos. Start speaking out. Double down on everything. If they ban us, we'll use a different platform. We will not be stopped, okay? And this isn't the right. This is freedom we're talking about. Freedom and justice in America. And with that, I got to go. But I love you guys. Have a great day. And man, I said, man, priest out, priest.